I can't decide whether the fact that this tree is supposed to cure toothaches or these crazy looking spikes all over it is the most peculiar thing about it. Because, to be honest, I'm not so sure about the whole toothache thing. So let's find out. This is Zanthoxylum clava-herculis, and it has one of my favorite scientific names. A common name for it is Hercules club, which comes from the crazy spikes all over it. But another one is toothache tree or tongue tingle tree. And here is where things get interesting. Allegedly, even just chewing on some of the twigs is going to produce a strong tingling numbing sensation in my mouth. Well, that seems easy enough, so let's try it. Here we go, here's my twig. Oh, there it is. It's tingling. Oh wow. It's a bit of a delayed reaction, but it does get there. Whoa, that's so cool. This is a wild tree. You can find it and experience the effects for yourself. We're in the middle of winter right now, and a lot of people experience cold-related tooth sensitivity. So it's great that we can have access to a tree like this. In this video, I'm going to show you where to go looking for it, how to distinguish it from lookalikes, some of which can be toxic, the underlying chemistry that produces the tingling effect, plus a few interesting facts that I don't think you'll expect. We will also discover other relatives with the same properties, because when we bring them into the picture, we have a truly global medicinal tree on our hands. First, I want to show you a little bit more about how I use this tree. So let's take it back to the lab and I'll show you. And one quick note before we get started, thank you so much to Auburn University's Donald E. Davis Arboretum for allowing me to come here and film this toothache tree. They have a lot of other incredible trees here, and it was one of my favorite places to be when I was a student at the university. Okay, so I have been experimenting with toothache tree. Here's what I tried, and here is what I found. To begin, I stripped the bark from one of the branchlets for my testing material, but I also used a component from another tree that I'll tell you about a little bit later too. I first tried a hot water extract, thinking that this might increase the intensity. To my surprise though, it didn't. Compared to just chewing on the inner bark fresh, I found the effects to be somewhat muted in the extract. It still worked, so if you couldn't chew something for whatever reason, then I think it would work great as a gargle in a mouthwash. Just make sure to keep it in your mouth until you start to feel the tingles. Don't spit it out immediately. So then I had this fun idea to make a preparation that I would use externally. And what I had in mind was something like Icy Hot or Tiger Balm, if you're familiar with those. I made a liniment extract using rubbing alcohol and sprayed it directly onto my skin. And what happened was nothing. Unfortunately, I had read about several cases of using it externally as a wash, but sadly, this doesn't come with the same effect as what is experienced in the mouth. So last, I tried chewing on the bark after it had dried. Again, I was surprised. This one was the strongest to me. So, you know, harvest the branches, grow the tree. It's pretty strong. And that's great too, because the most likely case is that you would harvest the bark and then dry it and store it for long-term use. Actually, I do want to warn you as well. I think it's possible to take too much of this stuff. I would mainly do testing on myself while I was on an empty stomach. And if I took too much of it, it would start to give me some stomach pain. So be careful, and as always, do your own research as well. With that, let me tell you about how to find and forage this tree for yourself. Hercules club is mostly a southern species, but you northerners, don't run off on me yet. I've got something for you too. Its range starts in East Texas and then wraps the coast all the way up as far north as Virginia. It likes to grow in sandy soils, and this is perhaps why it's mostly a coastal species. To my knowledge, it is the largest member of its genus, potentially reaching heights of 55 feet, but usually being found much smaller than that. And then we have Zanthoxylum americanum, northern prickly ash, which can be found in the Midwest and New England. And this one is probably the most common species in North America. What's cool about it is that it has the northernmost occurrence of any member of its genus. But that's not all. Remember, The species of Zanthoxylum span the globe. You've heard of the Szechuan pepper, right? It was in that episode of, what was it?
Yeah, I'd like to get a 10-piece McNugget and a bunch of the Szechuan sauce, like as much as you're allowed to give me.
Well, at least that clip was what made it popular. Anyway, the plants that produce Szechuan peppers are Zanthoxylum. How cool is that? Which are produced by Chinese species, Zanthoxylum bungianum and Zanthoxylum aromatum. You can simply use iNaturalist and punch in Zanthoxylum to see if it occurs in your area. While I know that the North American species can all be used in roughly the same way, I'm not sure about that for every species. So just make sure to do a little bit of your own research for your local area. If none of them occur where you are, which is kind of the situation that I'm in, you can also order the peppercorns online, which have the same chemical and thus the same effect as the twigs and the bark. I'll leave a link for the one that I use for my testing in the description. Before you go out looking for them though, you should know about a few potential lookalikes, some of which that are poisonous. Honey locust and black locust are the first ones that come to mind. These are actually members of the legume family. They both have spines. However, honey locust will clearly be much larger and far more menacing, so it's relatively easy to tell apart. But the spines of black locust look much closer to the prickles that we find on prickly ash. However, on the winter twigs, the buds of prickly ash are exposed, while on black locust, they are not. Additionally, the spines and prickles on black locust occur regularly, usually in pairs, at the leaf nodes, compared to the somewhat irregularly occurring prickles on toothache tree. The bark and twigs of black locust are toxic, so this one is extra important to know. I have to give an honorable mention to hackberry. I wasn't going to include this one on the list originally, but for the video, I drove over an hour to a spot that was supposed to have Hercules club. And when I got there, I couldn't find it, but I kept on getting tripped up by the hundreds of young hackberry trees that were all around the area. The ridges at the right stage can really resemble the raised bumps on Hercules club. However, on hackberry, they won't have a distinct pyramidal shape, and nor will they have sharp points at the top. The most similar species though is this one right here. This is Aurelia spinosa, and it is extra confusing because many people use the same common names for it as our Zanthoxylum, like toothache tree or Hercules club. I call it devil's walking stick. And while it is sometimes called toothache tree, to me, this is a complete misattribution. I did experiments with it for the video, and I honestly found it to just be overall irritating, without any significant soothing or numbing. Devil's walking stick has spikes that are smaller and never form the pyramidal shapes that we see on Zanthoxylum. To me though, the easiest way to tell them apart is the leaf scars, because on Devil's walking stick, they are very long and narrow compared to the much rounder and smaller scars of Hercules club. But as always, you don't need to worry about memorizing any of that because I put all the information on my downloadable winter profile for toothache tree, which is part of a set of other medicinal trees that you can find in the wintertime that is available on my Patreon. So what the heck is actually going on here? Why does this tree cause this crazy tingling sensation in our mouths? Thankfully, there have been some scientific investigations on the subject, which have led researchers to discover the chemical hydroxy-alpha-sanchool. This chemical activates somatosensory neurons. Soma means body, so we have body plus sensation. These are the neurons that are responsible for things like feeling touch, temperature, and pain. The overstimulation of the neurons creates the tingling and numbing effect that we experience. As a fun aside, some of you may have heard of the garden herb spilanthes, which my friend Tim Clemens from Ironwood Foraging calls electric daisies. But another name for them is toothache plant, and it has a strikingly similar effect to Zanthoxylum. I've tried them both. Spilanthes contains a chemical called spilanthol, and if you compare it side by side with hydroxy-alpha-sanchool, they look almost exactly the same in structure. Pretty cool, huh? So about the toothaches. While I'm confident and have experience that the tree indeed provides temporary relief for toothaches, sensitivity, or mouth pain, I wouldn't expect it to actually take care of the source of the issue. Especially if you are experiencing significant or persistent pain, it's probably best to consult with a dentist. Nonetheless, this is an incredible tree, one that I thought you should know about. And you can also find the species at native plant nurseries, so I would look for that in your area. Oh, and if you want to learn about 5 other wild medicinal trees, then you should click the video that has popped up next to me right now. I really hope to see you there.